You just killed a deer. Your neighbor just grew more grain than his family can eat. Neither of you has a single coin. Neither of you has ever seen one. And yet, somehow, you're about to make a trade that both of you will honor. How? For most of human history, there was no money, no coins, no bills, no banks. And yet humans still managed to move food, tools, and resources across entire regions, sometimes across hundreds of miles. So what were they actually doing instead? The textbook answer you've probably heard is barter. I'll trade you 3 fish for your basket. Simple, direct, obvious. Anthropologist David Graeber spent years examining this assumption, and what he found overturned nearly a century of economic thinking. Graeber's research suggests that direct barter between strangers, the version taught in economics textbooks, almost never actually happened as the primary system in most ancient societies. Here's the problem with pure barter. It requires something economists call a coincidence of wants. You need fish. I need a basket. I happen to have a basket. You happen to have fish. We happen to meet at the right time. This works occasionally, but it completely falls apart as a system for an entire society to run on. What actually existed instead was something far more interesting: debt and memory. In most small-scale ancient societies, documented extensively by anthropologists studying surviving traditional communities, people didn't trade item for item on the spot. They gave. And they remembered. If you had a good hunt, you shared meat with your neighbors. You didn't demand something back immediately. But everyone remembered. Your neighbor now owed you, not in a formal contractual sense, but in the deep social sense that mattered far more in a small community where you would see these same people every single day for the rest of your life. Anthropologist Marcel Mauss, in his influential study of gift economies, described this as a system of obligation. When someone gives you something, especially something valuable, you become bound to reciprocate, eventually, in some form. Refusing to eventually give back wasn't just rude. It was a serious breach of the social contract that held the entire group together. This system worked because everyone knew everyone. Reputation was currency far more powerful than any coin. If you consistently failed to reciprocate, failed to help when others needed it, that information spread through a small community almost instantly, and the social consequences could be severe. Reduced cooperation, reduced trust, in extreme cases, exclusion from the group entirely, and exclusion in the ancient world could be a death sentence. This gift and obligation system explains something that pure barter never could: how ancient societies managed complex, ongoing relationships between dozens or even hundreds of people without anyone needing to carry a mental ledger of exact exchange rates. Nobody needed to calculate that 1 deer equals exactly 4 baskets, equals exactly 10 days of tool-making labor. The system ran on trust, memory, and the certainty that debts, favors, and obligations would eventually balance out over a lifetime of living alongside the same people. But what happened when trade needed to happen between strangers, between different groups who didn't share that deep social trust? This is where things get more complex. Archaeological evidence suggests that trade between distant groups often happened through what researchers call silent trade or ceremonial exchange, highly ritualized systems where specific objects carried agreed-upon symbolic value precisely because everyone recognized them. Shells, particular types of stone, feathers, and other rare or difficult-to-obtain materials often served this role. Not because they had practical use, but because their rarity and universal recognition made them a stable reference point that strangers from different groups could both trust. Archaeologist Colin Renfrew has extensively documented long-distance trade networks moving specific valued materials like obsidian and certain seashells across hundreds of miles in the ancient world, long before anything resembling formal currency existed. These materials functioned partly as a bridge of trust between groups who otherwise had no basis for exchange. Some anthropologists argue this is actually the true origin point of money. not as a replacement for barter, but as an evolution of these trust objects, a way to formalize and standardize the kind of symbolic value the gift economies and ceremonial exchange had relied on for tens of thousands of years. The deeper truth is this: money didn't emerge because barter was inconvenient. Money emerged because human societies grew too large and too spread out for the trust-based gift economy to function on its own. When you know everyone in your group personally, memory and reputation are enough. When trade extends to strangers you'll never see again, you need something else, a physical object that carries agreed-upon value even in the absence of relationship. For the vast majority of human history, that something else simply wasn't necessary. People fed each other, housed each other, equipped each other, not through cold, calculated transaction, but through an intricate, unspoken web of obligation, memory, and trust that bound entire communities together for survival. You didn't need a coin to know what you owed someone. You just had to remember, and in a world where you saw the same faces every single day, for your entire life, forgetting simply wasn't an option worth risking. The economy wasn't written on paper, it was written into relationships, and it worked for longer than money ever has.